Sydney.
Franklin lining up at his 7. Good kick.
Heaney, the 18-year-old, could be the hero.
The Swans. I think of all the teams who could make a fool of you in predictions, I reckon Sydney's at the top of the pile. You could pick them to finish top 2, they miss the 8. You could pick them to miss the 8, they go top 2. I think this is a difficulty. Give us the basic maths on them.
They win a lot of home and away games. That's what we do know. They've gone 12, 16, 15, 17, 16. They're big numbers. Their list is still rated 4th, and that's probably a lot higher than a lot of us would have thought. But look at their midfield, and we'll get to that in a minute. It is strong and full of talent. Their draw is 9th. So there's the opportunity you talk about. And I don't think they'll be sliding too far just because they win games they should win. They very rarely drop a game that you pencil them in for. The ins of Sinclair in the ruck will be a bonus for them, given the fact they've lost Pike. Talia and Mills as a young gun from the academy. The outs of Jeddah, Goods, Shaw and Pike, and tack Bird on there if you like. There are a few outs that maybe just start to impact that senior core, if you like, through the middle of the ground.
So, Cam, do you feel like you've got the Swans pegged, or are they a danger to you?
Look, they're always going to be a danger because the talent, as Kingy said, through the midfield, but I've actually got them sliding out of the 8 this year. I look at them, only just, but I look at their midfield, we've got stars, but they're not a fast midfield. They're not a quick team. They get the ball, they handball at the back a lot. They handball sideways, they kick sideways. They're not a great kicking team out of stoppages, and that allows defences just to get back too easily, to get in front of Buddy. And then you go to their forward line. I mean, they've got 2 guys who've kicked over 200 goals in their career. That's it. Buddy and Tippett. And I'm not sure where Tippett's at the moment. I mean, he's playing in the ruck for the last 12 months. I mean, that's a very expensive ruckman. He needs to be plonking himself at full forward, allow Buddy to play like the cloak role that we've been talking about lately, just getting up the ground, allowing him just to do what he wants. But you've got to plonk Tippett in the goal square. Anywhere other than that, to me, he's a waste.
Speak of their mids, Kingy. They're big names and they're unbelievable players. They're starting 4 or 5 mids. But then the next group that can come through to help in that situation, where do you see that? Are they strong enough with their 10 or 11, the next 5 to come through to make 10 or 11 rotations through the mid? Is that next group strong enough?
Have a look at the group that's in there. I don't think we give it enough credit, and we'll bring a little slide up to show everyone at home. Look at these numbers. They're the starting 5, Hanbury, Kennedy, Mitchell, Parker and Jack, just their average disposals. 25 years of age, 27, 22, 23 and 28. You really don't have to worry about the next wave just yet. I mean, they're going to play a lot of football together.
But they showed last year they were only a couple of injuries away from...
Yeah, they got rocked with bad news for the last 6 weeks.
Everyone gets it.
That changes now to have Franklin roaming into that midfield. Now, Franklin is a low possession getter. He's only 13 to 14 possessions a week. But what he could do is exactly what they lack. They lack that real damage. You just spoke about that spark, that first received player off stoppages to get them into a scoring position almost immediately. And I think back, Jace, to a couple of finals we've seen them in, particularly against Fremantle, where they're able to get numbers back in front of Buddy when he's deep forward. But the moment they've moved him up the ground, their forward line seems to function without him. They're not as targeted towards Buddy when they step forward of centre and looking for an option. They scan rather than just kick it to Buddy. So I think this will be a real win for them. I know last year they dropped from averaging 97 points in 2014 to 91. And I think with Buddy up the ground, I'm not sure whether you agree, they should at least get that goal back on average a week this year, and who knows where that takes them.
Well, what happens when Buddy goes up the ground is it then breaks down the structure that the opposition had in place for Buddy when he's playing forward. So all of a sudden you open up holes for the other players. I think it gives them a good chance to get involved in the game. The way you describe Sydney is exactly how I see them. I've got them standing on the edge of the precipice. I don't know if they're going to cling on and hang on to a top 4 spot or whether they're going to tip off the other way. You hit the nail on the head too. They can't kick. That's the problem. You could count on one hand the genuinely good kicks in that team. So they brought in young Callum Mills, who's starting at half-back. They need a player like that. They've got to play McVeigh in the same sort of role, because ever since Malcheski left, whether you loved him or hate him or worried about his defensive frailties, doesn't matter. There's no distributors of the footy.
Sure.
They still rely on Grundy and Richard, who have been unbelievable for them. The two key defenders have been sensational for 10 years, but they can't go on forever. So I see some thinness in a bit of their structure.
Yeah, and I totally agree. When we have a look at their back six across the board, yeah, you've got Shaw, who has retired, so he's moved on. Rampy is a solid player. And he actually can run and drive the ball quite well.
Yep.
But when you look at Richards and Grundy, I think they, intercept-wise, are quite good. Grundy can take a good intercept mark, but then it's just a chip sideways. And then who's the next one that's going to kick the ball? Because you've got Smith in there and Laidler. Smith's more just your pure stopper. Like, he'll play on Cyril and not get many ball, but he'll stop, the best small forward getting it. I mentioned Rampy there as well. McVeigh goes back. He's the one who can run. They need to get him back there because I don't know whether it was last weekend when they played Carlton that it was Kerrin Jack got caught back there a little bit. He had two kicked on him very quickly in that game. I don't know whether that was just him covering off for someone who was out of position or he actually started in that defensive position because McVeigh was out of the side. They can't afford guys like that going back because defensively they're just not good enough.
They were the second quickest team on counter-attack last year. I know that would surprise you.
Yeah.
Going coast to coast, they're the second quickest to do it on average. So I think that sometimes what we see, we get locked into seeing. They've got some poor kicks down there, and they have to look at that mix. There's no doubt about that. Laidler, Rampy it clears the ball. He doesn't hit targets, he clears the ball. Laidler the same. Grundy under pressure the same. Teddy, great intercept marker, but they just clear the area. They rely on their midfielders to get back and help them too much.
But even the midfielders aren't astonishing kicks. They're effective kicks, most of them, but they're not great kicks. But we can find all these question marks over the Swans. You still have to fall back to the position that they're perhaps the most professional team we've seen in the last 10 years, and the number of wins they have every year shows you how professional they are.
I get worried defensively because watching the sides that I think they'll be around this year in that bracket that we're talking about, that logjam.
12 wins, are they, John?
Yeah, possibly. But the sides that they're going up against are moving the ball so quickly from D50 to forward 50. And
they're
the transition...
doing that, though.
Yeah, they are, but the opposition are doing it just as good, if not better, now. So I think that's where they maybe opened up a little bit defensively throughout the year.
Does Sam Reid, King, he has to play back? Or are you throwing forward? I'd like him to centre half back personally.
I think if you're going to move Buddy up the ground, you're obligated to play him in the forward 50 or certainly centre half forward, hitting the logos as you talk about.
Swing kind of
I'm not necessarily worried about him. I don't think he swung enough games to be a concern.
He has to stand on it. He got a nice 5-year deal as a young guy, had lots of potential. He has to deliver.
But between Sam Reid and Gary Rowan, we just haven't got the footy out of them that we've wanted to over the last few years, have we?
They've got two young guns, Heaney and Mills.
It is possible they've got the two best young kids in the comp.
Yeah, absolutely.
In tandem.
And I think that'll give them some luxuries in terms of using some of these ageing midfielders. You talk about McVeigh going to half-back, that's all they need. They need some composure down there. Can they rest a Hanbury at half-back or put him behind the ball to help him through traffic on the way? I know he's not an elite kick, but he's an elite decision-maker, and that sometimes can overcome that, and trust Heaney and Mills. But Mills is a very young body. They generally play them on the periphery for a little while. Up Sydney, they don't just throw them straight into the cauldron. But if John Longmire does that, that's why I don't have them going too far from where they are right now.
What do you need out of Tippett this year?
I need him to kick 50 goals.
50? 50's become the
50's
benchmark.
You started that with Stephen.
I look at key forwards. If key forwards can kick 50, I think that's more than a pass mark.
I don't know that he plays his best footy just as a key forward, though. I think he needs that release into the ruck.
That's okay.
And I can almost see him and Callum Sinclair almost a 50-50.
Does he ever kick 50?
No,
he would never have kicked 50.
Okay, let's go 40 then.
Kick 50, Joe kick 80.
But his last season at Adelaide, I mean, he took over 40 contested marks, kicked over 40 goals. He was a star in the making.
He was.
And he hasn't done much since, but last year they've had to play him in the ruck because they didn't have him in there. He was probably out of form. But he seriously needs to stand up for this because they don't have too many goal kickers. I mean, you talk about Heaney, he's just a kid.
I think what we have seen through the pre-season, though, is Parker will spend some time deep forward, Kennedy will go deep forward, and trust these midfielders to become goal square options. They can mark the ball overhead.
Yeah, absolutely.
The final question, I just want you to take a little bit of time over this. It's phrased as, can Buddy win another Coleman, his fourth? But really what the question is can he return to one of the best three players in the competition, marked by a Coleman? Or have we seen the best of Buddy?
I think he can. I definitely think he can. From what I've seen in the pre-season, he looks supremely fit and he looks refreshed, he looks happy, And I think if he's happy and he's ready to enjoy his footy, there's no telling what he might be capable of. Because when he's fit and running and there's no surplus fat on him at all, I reckon he's primed for a big year.
And again, if he's got that help where it's not all on him, and again, he doesn't go and anchor himself to the goal square, he gets that running game going, that's when he's at his best, not just when he's sitting in a goal square.
Tends to get more shots at goal than everyone else.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he'll get back into that top bracket. I think Sydney are...
Oh, he's finished,
I think,
is he, John?
no, he's not finished, but Sydney are searching for too much from Buddy, it seems. And I'm completely on the outside, but watching him play, he's even searching too much in game for himself. He's trying to go up to the midfield and do something that's not completely natural when I watch him do that. And it's taken away from what he can... Why was he so dominant at Hawthorn? Because he played that role and played it extremely well. It's like he's just moving too much around. He's not settled in game to allow to become that player that we've seen in the past.
There's our headline, Gerard.
Yeah. But he's cooked. He's done. He had his poorest goal return for 10 years and his lowest disposal year for 8. And he dealt with a lot of issues last year. I'd be staggered if he didn't come back to the player that we know of 18 months before. I think that he's looking as fit as I've ever seen him. He's the other night in NAB 3 against Carlton, he looked happy. He looked like he was loving footy again.
They play, and they were even in the kick-ins. They really just dragged him and at times Tippett back inside 50, just to said to the Carlton defence, if you want to sit up, that's fine, but if we get through, and they did, and they got easy goals out of that.
He'll be back, Gerard. He'll be in the top 3 or 4.
All right. Well, Sydney's the mixed bag that is expected. Next, the Sprout team, the Cats.